It is time for an update to the free Series 3 guide in that token shop. Any of you players who are not Series 3 complete, you are able to buy a free Series 3 card every month, one time per month. In this guide, we will go over the graphic that you see right there and explain why we've got cards in different sections, so it will make your decision as far as what Series 3 card to get for free is the best choice, at least for the meta that we're looking at for the next month. We will update this monthly, so anytime you want to check it out, we've got it. So hammer down that like button and subscribe. Let's do the dive into the free Series 3 guide for Marvel Snap. High level, we've got 3 sections here. We got the top section here, which is a must buy, the middle section, which is a should buy, the bottom section is a maybe buy. I say this with all my guide type videos. Generally speaking, a lot of this depends on the type of player you are, what cards you've got, all that sort of thing. I focus these on the meta at the moment. We've got Loki here. There's a lot of collection, reducing cost, gaining cards into your hand type stuff. And we're going to be looking at some stuff that potentially counters that. So we'll get some new cards on here. So having said that, let's start looking at the graphic. In our maybe buy section, this is where we're going to start. We'll go all the way over to the right-hand side. And the first card we've got is dropped severely. Mr. Negative. This might be a little early, but towards the end of the month, Mobius is coming. I am ridiculously disappointed that Mobius is going to change the way Mr. Negative works. I absolutely love the archetype. I think it's going to 100% kill it. I think it's unfortunate. So they said it in the Marvel Snap little ad that they did for this coming card. Mobius is going to change how Mr. Negative works. Or, well, it's not going to change how it works, but there's going to be no point to use him because Mobius is going to take all of that away. He's not going to be able to reduce the cost. I wish they didn't do that. I think that doesn't make sense because you're flipping the cost and the part. I get it, but I feel like the Mr. Negative archetype is a great one, and I think Mobius is going to probably kill it. Next, we've got Arrow. She's fallen from grace, love her, but she's still on the list. You see her here and there, but not that much. Maybe if Sandman and that type of thing comes back, which might, given this meta that we're in right now, she could move up a little bit. So she's still on the list. Rogue is still a great card. Almost dropped her off of this, but I think anytime you can steal something from your opponent is still pretty strong. Then we've got Colleen Wing, which is the lowest cost selected discard. I think that's the really critical, and discard is a great archetype still, and I think it's going to be improving even more here in the near future. Beast has fallen off quite a bit. I do not see Bounce out there a lot. I think he's still a nice card, but he's just not really doing anything. You don't see him. Absorbing Man arguably could be a little higher, but given the nerf that they've done to everything with that copying of the Brood, etc., I think he's a little lower. So I've left him here for now. I think he could move up when Alioth comes out. And honestly, that is that month, but I'm a little worried that's not going to be as good as I'm thinking. So I just left him in this lower section for now. I do think he could arguably be much, much higher. Invisible Woman, just still a solid card anytime you're trying to hide. Typically ongoing, or that Living Tribunal Iron Man Onslaught combination, which is really good. Goose, solid card. Thor has fallen off a little bit. You're not seeing as much of him, given when we had the Jane Jawed type deck. So I moved him down. Still a solid card, but not quite, you know, what he used to be. Next up in the maybe buy row, we've got Valkyrie. I almost took her off, but then I remembered I wanted to talk about a certain archetype that she's going to play into here with the potential encounter of Loki. Now, is it great? Not necessarily, but I think it's going to be solid and you might want to use it, so I left her on here. Black Bolt, still just a really solid card to anytime you want to pair up with Stature. Hela has dropped down quite a bit. I had her a little bit higher, but I did move her down to the maybe buy section. I just think she's a little bit too niche, and it's like, if you really want her. Similar with Ultron. If you're looking at Patriot, fine. Okay, it's not bad. You can have him on there. Destroyer sort of in that same general realm where he's a good card. If you like the Destroy archetype, I think it's fine to have. Hood is still a pretty good card. Anytime you can get a 1/6 demon, if you're playing it right, I think it's good. I left it on here. Jane Foster, I thought about dropping her as well, given that Jane Jaw deck has fallen off a little bit, but I've left her for the time being, especially with Mr. Negative potentially falling off. She's a likely candidate to fall off this list completely next month. Psylocke, I still just generally like as a card. Anytime you're trying to get a 5 cost on turn 4, etc., I think she's good. Red Skull, I think he still needs to be, but he's slacking a little bit. There's got to be a slight balance here. I'm not sure if it's plus or 1 for your opponent, or if it's another point here or another 2 points here. But it just feels pretty bad to get a potentially a 5, what could be a 5/10 really. All right, now we're looking at the should buy. All right, so you can get a little tease there for some of those cards. Going all the way to the end here, the first card we've got is Taskmaster. I think generally speaking, he's just a really good card to copy. Any of your other high cost cards that you use, he can fit in a lot of archetypes. He's not just for Red Skull and Shuri or anything like that. I think he is really good for copying Venom or any sort of card that's got high power on it that you can lay down either late on turn 5 or first on turn 6 if for some reason you've got a really high kitty Zola, great for getting locations filled in when you can't reach to them. You've got one card in a certain location. Brood, look, again, similar to that Absorbing Man situation. I think he's fallen off a little bit, but he's still pretty good. Surfer's still pretty decent. So I've left him on this section. Should you buy it? You know, maybe if it's really archetype. Rockslide did take a little bit of a pop or dump here, but you know, he's still pretty good with Darkhawk, and the curve is a little better with him, so I've left him on the list. Electro is a great ramp card for getting additional energy, so I also left him on this area. Venom has moved down quite a bit. Last month I had him in the must buy section, mainly because it was such a heavy destroy month, so you really would want to have him for that month. For now, I've dropped him down a little bit. It's a little bit less critical. Obviously, if you're a destroy player, it's more critical for you to get him. Luke Cage, the whole sort of negative affliction stuff is falling off a bit. I think he's still a really good card, so I think he deserves to stay in this section. Magneto, still a strong card, but if you don't play him well, he can actually cost you the game. Again, he's typically in a lot of those Hela type decks. I talked about a potential counter for some of the Loki stuff. I think Cerebro is potentially going to fit in there. Mobius is a 3 power card. Fits right into that. So I would think about potentially getting Cerebro. Is it going to be fantastic against everything? No, it's not, but I think it could be pretty good, and it's not like it's going to help out a Loki deck very much. We're already seeing some change. I mean, it's only been a few days in, and we're already seeing Loki struggle a little bit more, but I am still going to put this in here in case anybody's having a lot of problems. All right, top row of should buy Wong. I still just really like Wong. He is a great early game card, doubling up those on reveals. He falls off a little bit late, but he's still can be really strong. There's not a ton of Enchantress Cosmo right now, so he can kind of shine a little bit more. Patriot is always just a solid card. He's been around forever. Pretty basic stuff, but still I think deserves to be in this top row. Then we've got Super Scroll. I absolutely love Super Scroll. I just think that anytime you're going against some ongoings, he just copies and takes everything. I do have some questions about how he works with Onslaught and Mystique against Living Tribunal. There seems to be sometimes some weird interactions there which make it so he cancels himself out. It's really odd. And I don't know. Anyway, he's still fantastic. Sauron is a great card. You get that Shuri and Red Skull, Typhoid Mary, Ebony Maw, all that sort of thing is great with Sauron. He can really do good deals. That's a great location to also have Taskmaster in. Dracula, Lady Deathstrike has not done anything to affect Dracula. She's just sort of a non-factor in the game right now. So Dracula is still looming large, and I think a really solid card. Daredevil, just, you don't see him as much, but I don't think I could ever not have him and should buy. He's just a great card, especially early on when you're trying to learn to play the game and you really need to know what your opponent's going to do. A first time show up for Shadow King. Why is Shadow King on this graphic? He's on this graphic because of what's happening with Collector right now. Collector is getting out of control with Loki. He's getting insanely big runs, especially late in games, especially if somebody copies another Loki. I think having Shadow King is something that you're definitely want to look at. Also works with the Cerebro 3, which I think is awesome. Juggernaut, another card we're about to talk to, also works for Cerebro 3. So I think Shadow King is something that you're absolutely going to want to look at. You take down that Collector, it's pretty good. Juggernaut, like I mentioned, just a great sort of tech card, gets anybody moved out of a lane. I think I love it. I know I love it. But also that 3 power is a fantastic thing to put on that Cerebro that we mentioned earlier. And the last card we've got in the should buy section is Agent Coulson. Talked about Loki, collecting, all that sort of thing. Agent Coulson plays into that. Gives you a couple cards. If you got your Quinjet, if you got your Sarah or anything like that, you're going to be able to get those cards cheaper. All right, so let's jump up into the must buy section. All right, starting off in must buy, we'll go to the bottom right hand section of this. We've still got Death in this section. She's in the same location she was before. She's just a really good card. I think generally speaking, anytime you play the Destroy archetype, you pretty much mostly have to have her. Spider-Man, I've got on here. He might fall off of this a little bit. We'll see. But I think you've got the ability to move your card or move your opponent's cards around. You could put them on Angela, get a couple extra points there. I think it's fantastic. Lockjaw arguably could have fallen, but I still left him up here because, you know, he just keeps popping in and off this list. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave him there. Bast. I used to have her in like the top 4, but I've dropped her some. Now, you could put her in that Cerebro 3 thing too. So I think that could be very nice. You drop her in that lane with Valkyrie, she becomes 3/2, so it's not a wasted card. It's really nice. So for that reason, I think she could be, and you know what? She deserves to be in this spot for partially that reason. Otherwise, I'm not even sure she deserves to be up here. She used to be in part of that bounce stuff with Hitmonkey, Mysterio, who's I've taken off this list now at this point. I just don't see him as much. I haven't seen a lot of good decks with him. He just doesn't seem to be making an impact right now. So, but I couldn't drop Bast any more than that. Nick Fury, first time on this, is up at this high because, again, of the Loki collector, all that sort of nonsense going on. You get some 6-cost cards in there. Potentially, you either use those to refresh with Loki to get more points for a collector, or honestly, if you get them played early enough and you get the Sarah kind of Quinjet combo, those 6-cost cards can get pretty cheap, and you're going to play a bunch of 6s late game, especially if somebody magics, which, speaking of, great cards still to have on here. She's everywhere. I'm not necessarily putting her in a lot of decks at the moment, but she's still really good, so I'm loving her, and I absolutely think she's a top-notch card. Wasp, she's just really good still. She could potentially fall here. You're not seeing as much of her. I would maybe consider dropping her next month. We'll see. And then the Surfman. Surfer is still doing pretty solid. I think he's worthwhile of a buy. He just fits so many different decks, and anytime 3s come out, everyone's like, oh, Surfer, Surfer, Surfer. So I think he stays. Then we got Mr. Doom back on our list here. Actually, he was always on the list, but it's nice to have his Doombots back plus power. I think it makes him a little bit better. Is it a huge difference? No, but it's still pretty good. Mystique, I think, again, copying. She's not going to move from this list anytime soon. I did drop She-Hulk back a little bit. She was normally a little higher on this list, but I moved her back just a hair. You're just not seeing her quite as often. I still think she's a fantastic card. And then Shuri bumped up a couple spots. I think that she's just really good, honestly. Doubling up a different card, I think she's really solid. It's not really falling off, and I think just it's a card you're gonna want. Wave, listen, I thought Mobius was gonna be trumped by Wave. I was wrong. Wave still has a lot of impact though, especially against these Loki decks. Hey, guess what? It's a 3-cost card, Wave. So for some reason, if you need to limit something late and just play maybe 1 card last turn, and you've already got your Cerebro and your Mystique out or something like that, and you've got other 3s, and you want to play just Blue Marvel on turn 6, and you want to limit your opponent, Wave could work pretty well there. And then going back to the front end of this list, I've got Sarah. Sarah is just making, I mean, look, she's always been really good. I dropped her back, I think a spot or 2 maybe, and she had to go back in. Right now with what's happening with Loki and cost card reduction, she is just top tier. You play Psylocke on 3 and her on 4-2, it gets even sillier. She's just straight up fantastic. Absolutely love her. Now the question is, we always add 1 card to this graphic every single month at the end to say this is the one we want to focus on this month because of what's happening, new cards, etc. And this month, the card we're going to add on this is going to be the Quinjet. Quinjet with, again, Loki, everything that's happening, cost card reduction coming from out of hand. I just want to have Quinjet on here. I think it's a phenomenal card. You could argue Absorbing Man is probably better maybe with Alioth later. I think both pretty good. Even though I've got Absorbing Man and maybe buy, I don't know how often you're going to really be able to play Alioth on 5 and Absorbing Man on 6, or if you extend the game, etc. So I have him a little bit lower. So right now, Quinjet's gonna be what it's gonna be. I think he's a fantastic card. I did not have him on this list for a long time, and I dropped him into must buy, which is, yeah, okay. It's, you know, look, these metas tend to be weekly, monthly, bi-weekly. So I think right now, this is the snapshot in time. Snap, get it? Okay. Anyway, I think that it's a card you're going to want to have. Yes, it can be easily destroyed, countered, Enchantress, etc. But with the decks that you're going to play with Loki, you're going to potentially have Zabu, Sarah. Move those ongoings around a little bit. They can't hit every single one of them. Again, Cerebro 3, Killmonger. All of these things are very advantageous for you to use in game. So that's what we got. Which of these are way off in your book? Which ones are missing in your book? What would you buy this month as far as what your focus is? I hope this graphic has been helpful for you. If it has been, please consider hammering down that like button, subscribing, notification bells, any type of support the channel is appreciated. If you want to further financially support the channel, we've got Amazon affiliate links below, Patreons, joining on YouTube, all that sort of thing. Until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day.